Good morning, parents, guardians, staff, and community members of Salinas City Elementary School District. I am Dr. Rebecca Andrade, and first of all, I want to thank you for your patience and understanding as we work through some of our continued technical difficulties. I know that all of you are familiar with what is happening, and I, more than anything, just want to thank you for your time and coming to our virtual town hall. We will be having more opportunities for you to provide feedback. There will be another meeting this evening, and we will continue to take feedback in many various forms, including email, phone call, and we will create a FAQ so that you have responses if we don't have them at the end of this meeting. So today we are sharing the proposed models for the 2020-21 school year, the safety guidelines and measures being considered, and answer any questions that you may have. I want to extend my gratitude to the team who has been working tirelessly behind the scenes preparing this plan. And in particular, I want to thank our assistant superintendents, Dr. Daisy Morales, Alejandro Hogan, and Sarah Perez, and all the staff who have been working with them. Including our labor organizations, SCTC and CSEA. All planning that we are doing is adaptable, and we are going with the framework that everything is flexible and it can change at any minute. We will continue to provide you information in the days to come based on the feedback that we receive, as well as the local health guidelines that we receive from Monterey County and from our state. I am now going to turn it over to Mr. Hogan, who will share the safety guidelines.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome. On Monday, July 6th, we reopen our doors in our district office, in our maintenance yard operations, and we establish a set of safety protocols in order to come back to the workplace in a safe fashion. We have established these protocols, and we have been practicing these protocols since then, and we are the prototypes so that we are ready to reopen schools when that time comes. The basic plan for reopening schools in terms of safety is that there will be various entry points at the schools. The principals and the site administrators, the vice principal and the principal, will determine what are those entry points. It'll vary from school to school because some schools are larger than others. Some also have different configurations and so on. So the principals will be in charge of determining which entry point will be established at the sites. It could be that there will be an entry point for staff only and another entry or several entry points for students, depending again on the configuration of the school. Whatever it is in terms of entry points, each entry point will be staffed with a person who will be taking temperatures with an infrared thermometer when the students or the staff come in. If anybody is showing 100.4 degrees or more, that person will not be able to come into the school. If it's a school member, an employee, then that person will be sent home. If it's a student, then parents will be notified and that student needs to be picked up immediately. We also have established social distancing at our facilities with stickers that show at least 6 feet, and we're going to try to maintain that. We will have staff as students line up to have their temperature taken. We're going to teach the airplane model that they have to raise their arms and they have to go around like this, make sure that they cannot touch anybody. We will try to do that, and we will indoctrinate our students that while in line, they will have to do that. Our classrooms, the plan is that the seating will be less than 15 students. In our K-3 classrooms, we have a maximum of 24 students. So we're anticipating that if we have to split this class in 2 cohorts, there will be 12 students at a time. In our upper grades, 4 through 6, we would have, like I said, no more than 15 students in a classroom. The desk will be set up so that there will be enough distance between them. At this point, all students and staff will have to wear a mask all day, even in the classroom, because as you know, we are learning more about COVID-19, and we know that that it's very possible that contamination can happen, even if you are seated at a socially acceptable distance, and so we must wear our masks during the day. So those are the safety general plans at this point. Like I said, as we move into July, we will learn more with our prototypes of the maintenance yard and the district office, and then we will implement any additional safety features at the sites when we're ready to open the sites.
Mr. Hogan, there
Yes.
is a safety question from one of the people who registered that says, will temperatures be taken prior to getting on the bus?
And I said yes.
Yes, if a student is riding a bus, yes, that will be the case.
And then the other one will be provided with glass protection.
Are there any more questions?
There are some more questions, but I know that they're discussed later. Here's
Okay.
somebody asking, will teachers be provided with plexiglass protection?
Again, that would be in terms of the configuration of the classroom and the site. Our staff, our maintenance staff is ready to provide those kinds of things upon request from the principal. So if teachers feel that they need plexiglass, then they need to speak with their principal. Okay, if there are more questions, I can answer them later. If not, let's proceed. Thank you. I'd like to introduce now our Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services, Dr. Morales.
Hi, everyone. Welcome, parents, staff, community. So we will go into the programs, their models that we have currently thinking through in terms for next year. But before we tackle that, I want to make sure that all of parents, all of the staff are aware that ParentSquare is our communication platform for our parents. So if you haven't downloaded the application, please do so now. Some of the staff members are dropping in the chat box these tips for parents around how to activate and how to use our platform. So please be sure to download it, because your selection of between these 2 models will be done on this platform, because it already provides your student information, so you don't have to enter any extra information. So please download it. And also a team member will be sending out invites right now during this presentation. So if you get an email or a text from ParentSquare, please download the app. And once you're in the app, it works very much like Facebook and looks very much like Facebook, but it's private. So it's between you and the teacher and you and that school. So again, we encourage all parents and all staff members to download that app. So we want to talk about a little bit of the assumptions given to us by the health department around this time of COVID. So we know that the COVID virus will remain in circulation until a vaccine is widely used. We also know that the attendance rates will decline during this year because of the situation that we're in. And we are preparing that outcomes for students might be uneven and vary broadly. We also know that we will need to take into consideration a lot of health issues, both mental health and emotional health. And we need to continue to monitor the trends and prepare for any program adjustments. And some of these summaries we were presented at the last board meeting, so they might look very similar. There is going to be an economic impact with this pandemic, and it does have lasting impact on all of us. The big one that we continue to live by is plan for the plan to change. Things are fluctuating on a day-to-day basis, and we have to be flexible and plan for all the what ifs, which is really, really difficult. Our final design, our final option that we want to offer will have to be supported by our health officials here at Monterey County. We also want to make sure that we are offering both in-person and distance learning options, which is what we're going to do. And you're going to hear all the details about it in a minute. We will be working to make sure that we are in compliance with the restrictions. And currently the restrictions, particularly for childcare in our after-school program, is 12-1. So those are some of the assumptions that we're working off of. We are planning, and you'll see it on another slide, we are planning for a quick transition to 100% distance learning. We continue to hear that a second and third wave of the pandemic might hit. This is a model of the pandemic that happened in the early hundreds, so 1918, 1919. And we know that it could occur again, and we are hearing the health officials tell us that there could be a reoccurrence of the pandemic. So even though we are wanting to logistically offer an in-person instruction, we are really planning to transition quickly to 100% distance learning overnight. So again, I just mentioned that, but also we want to make sure that all students have a district issued Chromebook. We have made the purchases to allow every student TK to 6 to have a Chromebook. And so if your child does not have a district issue Chromebook, it is extremely important that they get that. It allows us to be able to troubleshoot when they're having issues with our platforms. So it is really important that you receive that. We had an issuance the last 2 weeks of June and the first week of July. We had a time where we had distribution. We will do that again at the end of July, early August. So again, if your child does not have a district issued Chromebook, we need all students to pick that up and use it for their instruction, whether in a hybrid model, and definitely for 100% distance learning. So right now, going to be dropped into the chat box. You will see a document that looks like this, and it has all the details that I'm going to be sharing now because it's a lot of information. But you will have all of the details around our two models, and it's being dropped in the chat box. It's going to be posted on our website, and it will also be shared on our ParentSquare platform, so you have it in front of you. Some general information about the two models that we're going to be talking about is these models are subject to change. And I placed it in bold in the presentation because we want to make sure that you are aware that we are planning as best we can to meet the needs, but we have to be flexible to legislature, and we have to be flexible to what the Department of Health is asking us to do. Depending on the number of participants in these models, students might be assigned to another school that is not their home school. Once a model is selected, we need for you to stay within that model till the end of each trimester. And any request to change either from the 100% distance learning or to our hybrid model would need to be made at the end of a trimester, and you'll need to request that, and it all depends around if we have the space. So it'll be looked at case by case, and that will be handled by our site principals. Also, the selection process that you will be doing in ParentSquare isn't necessarily complete enrollment. So if you have any forms for enrollment that have not been completed, please do so, and all of our enrollment documentation is on the website. So the first model that we are looking or proposing to offer is a hybrid model. The hybrid model would have all students at distance learning on Mondays. So no student would come to school on a Monday. Everyone would be learning from home. Tuesday, Wednesday would be a cohort A, or the group of students. Remember, as we mentioned in the safety slide, no more than 15 students per classroom. And cohort B would come to school on Thursday and Friday. An important note about this model that we are selecting is myself and the Director of Curriculum Instruction, Mr. Dillinger, have been on the task force with other districts in the city. And this is the same model that we are all using, except for one district that is using a different model. All the rest of us are using this hybrid model with Monday as distance learning. And since we are matching and partnering with a high school district, we are going to do our very best that all the families are within the same cohort. So students, in elementary, middle, and high. If they're in the same family, we're going to try to keep them within the same cohort. So know that we are in conversation and on the task force with the high school district, and we are doing this work collaboratively. So in the hybrid model, and I know that's a lot of text, and that's why we want to make sure that you have it in your hand, and so it should be in the chat box. So it will be 2 days of consecutive instruction in person and 3 days of distance learning, depending upon the cohort that the students are in. We are looking to have students that are in SDC classes to either come to school every day or be on a modified schedule, and look for more information to come on that. They will also be necessary sometimes to move students depending upon how many we have in distance learning and how many we have in person. So distance learning students might be assigned to a different school that's not their home school in order to be able to balance classes. Right now we're looking at that classes will start between 8 and 9. We're changing up our start times in our schools because we have to also deal with the transportation and how many students we can transport at one time. So be on the lookout from your particular principal as to when your school will start and when it will end. But it will be roughly between 8 and 9 in the morning and 12 and 1:30 in the afternoon. We're also going to be providing limited after school programs. Normally we would host anywhere between 80 to 100 students. Because of the social distancing requirements, there will be a decrease in what that will be able to be offered. Our administrator for after school programs, Brian Hayes, is in the process of putting together a more detailed information as to what we'll be able to offer at the particular school. So be on the lookout. That will go out to parents through ParentSquare. So again, very critical that you signed up for ParentSquare. In the hybrid model, the 2 days that students are at school, as we mentioned in the safety slide, it'll be no more than 15. Temperatures will be taken at the door, and anybody who has temperature will be put in an isolation room until parents can pick them up. But it's very important, and it might be also wise to take your students' temperature in the morning before they leave the house to make sure that you don't drop them off and then have to come pick them up. Just an idea. We are looking at anybody that tests positive in those classrooms. We can quickly convert those hybrid models into 100% distance learning and do the 2-week or 14-day quarantine that is required. We are looking to make sure that students are seated 3 to 6 feet apart. The more the better. The big thing with this is that students will have recess, but our playgrounds will not be available, and this is as per CDC requirements. So we will have students playing outside with individual toys or items that they don't have to share with other students, so they have a chance to go outside, run around. But we need you to know that the play equipment will be closed. Also, parents will not be able to bring lunches to students during the day. They could come to school with a lunch or a snack, but we can't have the drop-off done each morning or in the offices like we've done in the past. We will be providing sack lunches just like we've done during the summer, and all students that need lunches for the 5 days will be provided those lunches, and all of those details will be coming out as soon as we have these options approved by the board, and we get all of the details from our nutrition department. The 3 days that students are in the hybrid model at home, so for cohort A, those students that come to school on Tuesday, Wednesday, they will be having distance learning on Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays, and vice versa. We will be taking attendance online every day. CDE, so the Department of Education, has very strict now requirements of how we have to track participation on our online platforms. So we need to be able to take attendance in the morning. In the afternoon, we have to track engagement throughout the day for all of our distant learning platforms. And so again, for those days that students are not in school, they will have lunches that they can pick up or lunches that they could take the day before. So all students that need lunches for the 5 days, they will be provided that. We are asking parents also to be monitoring their students as they participate in classroom activities and discussions. And we also will be tracking online their online participation throughout the school hours. 100% distance learning, that's option number 2. And this is the student doesn't come to school any day of the week. And it's very similar to what we just discussed around distance learning. Students will be monitored online. They're expected to complete assignments. They will be doing assessments online. There will be very much clear criteria for what to expect from teachers, what to expect from parents, what to expect for students. And again, once the board approves our models and we are able to have parents select this, you will be able to see that criteria as to what that will entail. I know many of you might have some questions around special education. We are in the process, and the director of SCESD, Mrs. Ballesteri, is on the phone to answer any questions, but we are meeting around the various programs and various adaptations that we need to do in order to meet all of our students' IEP minutes and their accommodations. We are looking, again, subject to negotiations, we're looking to have our SDC classes, our special day classes, being held Monday through Friday, because those classes are less than 15 students. But for our special ed education parents, 100% distance learning is also an option. You will have to have an IEP meeting to then amend your IEP if that is a choice that you would like to make for your families. We have preschools, and I know this is another question that has come up various times. Because of the limitation of the ratios, we will have sessions open. Special education preschools, that's students with IEPs that are younger than kindergarten age. Currently, we have our state preschools and our Smart Start preschool, as well as our EDC child care sessions. Those are all currently full with students that are already enrolled. So we do have those sessions. We just don't have any additional space currently. We are looking at the options of how do we provide more spaces for childcare and for preschool, but currently with the limitations, not only with student to adult ratio, but also with limitations within budgets. Currently on enrollment for those preschools are completely full. Things to be determined. Start time of some of the schools, the number of students that we can transport per school, and then also the final details after on our after school programs. So currently that's, and a lot of other issues, a lot of other details as the state continues to change things and add things and delete things. But we're putting together the program and the models as fluidly as we can to make it safe for students, make it safe for staff, but also make it accessible to parents. So currently those are our 2 options for instruction for next year. And so that concludes what I wanted to present, or we wanted to present to you. Do we have any questions?
Dr. Morales, there are a few things that came up. Let me just ask them. Just to clarify again, parents would have the choice between the 2 models.
Yes. You will be receiving after, if the board approves this on Monday, on Tuesday, we'll be sending out the commitment form through ParentSquare, and you will see your student's name, and you will be able to say, for Johnny, I want 100% distance learning. For Peter, I want 100%. So you will be able to select for each of your children the model that you want.
Is there a deadline for that?
We will be giving parents a week to fill out that commitment form. And by the end of the week, we would have principals, front office staff, secretaries, and such calling those parents that haven't responded, because we need 100% response to that commitment form.
There's a question that somebody had about AB 77. Does this comply with AB 77?
Yes, it is. So AB 77, the way it came out originally, was saying there wasn't an option, and then senators that wrote the bill clarified, and we have all of the documentation that clearly stipulates that these 2 options are options that we can offer our families.
Will students that are in dual immersion classes be able to continue having dual immersion?
Yes. So students who are in our DI programs will continue in DI virtual distance learning. Yes.
And you mentioned that at the end of every trimester, people would have the opportunity to change between options?
If possible, and if there's a space available, because if a classroom is maxed at 15, for example, in the upper grades, and that is not a possibility at their home school, we could check other schools, but that would be a parent choice, and it would be, that's why it's a case-by-case basis, depending upon what's available.
And that's also true if somebody needs to switch between trimesters or during a trimester, right? If the space is available?
In between trimesters, by the end of trimester 1, end of trimester 2. In the middle of trimester is very difficult to change because you will be changing teacher, and you will, so the grades are very difficult to do. So any changes that will occur in trimester areas.
If someone chooses distance learning, are they guaranteed that for the entire school year?
If they don't request to change, yes, they could stay in 100% distance learning. So if they choose it at the beginning and they don't change, they get 100% distance learning for the entire year.
Will schools be, I'm sorry, the comments coming in very quickly. What are the criteria for the hybrid model? Are there some families given priority over others, like essential workers?
We haven't established a criteria for the hybrid model. If you want the hybrid model, select the hybrid model, and that's what you will get. That's the goal.
And just to clarify again,
the commitment form will allow us to be able to plan how many teachers we need in each. And so that's why we need the commitment form, so then we can establish those classrooms.
if they choose the hybrid model, is there a possibility that they might not be going to their current school?
No, if they choose a hybrid model now, it is probably like 99% guaranteed that you'll be at your current school. Is if you go 100% at the beginning and then want to go hybrid in the middle of the year at some point, that's where we might not be able to guarantee the current school.
What happens if there are so many people who choose the hybrid model that they're forced to go to distance learning? Would that happen?
The way our structures and our classrooms are set up, no. That's why the max per classroom is 15, because as Mr. Hogan mentioned, our classrooms in the upper grades are up to 28. So if we were even not to go 100% distance learning and divide that class in half, it would be 14. So if those parents pick 100%, our classrooms are going to be even smaller.
Okay. We have quite a few questions about the teaching aspects of it that I know we're going to share with teachers and other employees about how they're selected for distance learning, how they can apply to do that type of thing. Maybe I can answer some of these questions. If we choose online learning, will our child be assigned to their home school? You said before that maybe not. It depends on how many people are choosing that option. Yes. There's a question that came up. You talked about after-school programs as far as like the best program. Will there also be EDC offered?
So we have EDC in about 2 or 3 schools, and I checked in with the principals and the coordinators today, and those are full. So those are currently, yes, they're going to be offered, but they're currently full. And again, we have to balance the distance learning restrictions with a budget in terms of place, that we are able to offer, but also the space and capacity in lieu that we need to clean classrooms really well every night.
All right. Has state testing been suspended?
Current testing for next year has not been suspended.
Okay. Virginia, do you see any other questions? There are questions about how we will be able to provide all the special education services, but you said that that's still something we're working on and details will be given to those families.
Right, and a lot of those, it all depends after they make their choice. So even all of our parents, special ed or general education, will make the request. They want 100% distance learning, they want the hybrid model. Depending upon what they choose, their IEP will have to be modified. Because if they choose 100% distance learning, those special programs will look different than in the hybrid model. So again, we need to know from parents which they're choosing, so we're able to establish how we're going to accommodate all those needs.
Questions about if we're in dual immersion, will they stay in dual immersion regardless of which model they choose?
Yes.
All right. Let's see. What happens if a teacher shows up and they have a temperature over 100? What will happen?
So the key number is 100.4. So any teacher that has 100.4, or any person actually, 100.4 or higher cannot go to work. So all of our temperatures, we get our temperature taken every morning. They won't be allowed to go into the classroom to teach. So that means we will have to put in a substitute, just like we do when teachers are sick in a normal time. Each principal will be making sure that their substitutes are trained to walk into classrooms in our hybrid models.
Okay. Let's see. Will there be textbooks provided for students who have 100% distance learning?
Yes.
Yes, there will. Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things in the criteria sheet that you're receiving for the 100% distance learning, one of the things on the bullet point is that parents will have to, will have a setup time where you will be coming to pick up textbooks for your student if you're in 100% distance learning. A lot of our curriculum is available online, but for those few exceptions, yes, we will have a time for students to come, or parents to come and pick up those textbooks.
What will the cleaning process be between the two different groups?
So I just had Dan, who's our head of our custodian. I don't know if he's on this line, but it will be the misting that will be done every day that covers everything in the room to disinfect and kill pretty much all viruses. And so that is a nightly office, every building. Daryl, are you on the line? I don't think so, but
Dan is available here.
Hello. Between the cohort, sanitizing of all the classrooms being done with the spray and wipe, with the custodians, we will have our custodians on site doing continual touch point disinfecting and bathroom disinfecting. Every night we will have what we call foggers, and each classroom will be fog disinfected as well as all the common areas. Does that
Awesome.
answer the question?
Yes.
Thank you.
What happens if a child has other symptoms besides a fever? So if somebody's coughing or something like that, should we stay at home?
As a parent, I think that's a parent choice. In terms of the guidelines that we're following, the indicator is the temperature.
If a child gets moved to a different school because there isn't enough room for some reason, do they have to fill out one of those transfer forms?
Rafael, are you online? Or Virginia, can you answer that? I would say yes, but I want to make sure that I give the correct answer.
Hello, Dr. Miles, this is Virginia. I would say yes at the moment, but a lot of it will be internal just for keeping track of the paperwork and accountability.
Okay.
I would think that since we would need to be moving the parents to
Yeah.
accommodate it, we would do everything possible to minimize,
Yes.
Internally,
Yeah.
to minimize what parents would need to do.
Sounds like a plan.
Then there are more specific questions. If it's a distance learning model, how many times a week will teachers be meeting with students?
So all of those details are currently being drafted because a lot of those details are negotiable items. So be on the lookout for more information, particularly after the board approves the plan. Again, all of those details of criteria for parent teachers will be coming out once we have the go-ahead and offer these two platforms. The CDE, or the state, the Department of Education, is being very more specific in terms of what needs to be tracked. And so we need to be able to say through various touch points throughout the day that teachers have had contact with students in terms of to encourage participation and engagement. So we will have a tracking log as per CDE guidelines on any of the aspects of distance learning. So it will look very different than distance learning did in the spring, because they have given us a lot of criteria that we need to make sure that we follow with distance learning. What those are at this moment have not been determined, again, as they are negotiable items.
So if I choose 100% distance learning for this school year, do my children, do they go back to their homeschool the following year?
So we are hoping that after this year, we're able to go to more of a in-school, but a year from now, it's really hard to say. There hasn't been any guidelines. Right now, we're functioning month to month pretty much, sometimes week to week, sometimes day to day. So what the following 2021-22 is gonna look like is yet to be determined. It's too far out for us to be able to say what will or not be offered in a year from now.
Will the information that you are referring to be available before parents are asked to make a decision? And then another comment related to that, why are parents being asked to to choose an option when all the details have not been worked out yet, or we don't know all the information from the state?
So we have to be able, we can't, it's like the cart and the horse, right? So we need to know how many parents are going to want to do this option, so we're able to see how many teachers we have, so we can negotiate that with our union. So we need to have an idea of which way you want to go. Know that distance learning is very much along the guidelines that we shared here. It's going to require parent monitoring. It's going to require taking attendance online. It's going to require that the student is able to be online, to be able to do assignments and assessments. So it's a lot more strict than it was in the spring. The details of how many assessments and how many assignments and when exactly they're going to be online, all of those details don't really make a difference in terms of a selection. Either you're really sure you're going to have your kid on 100% distance learning, or you want your student to be able to be in the hybrid model. So we need to know a parent commitment. And again, there's flexibility to moving between that once the criteria comes out. But we need a start point in terms of roughly how many parents want 100% distance learning and how many parents want the hybrid model. This is pretty consistent with what the state is requiring. The details of like they have to be on at 8:30 or will be slightly different for each school, but the general details are these.
All right. So, and again, this keeps coming up. If we choose 100% distance learning, we may be assigned to another school as opposed to the homeschool. Yes, it depends on how many students. The goal is to keep everybody at their home school, but there's a possibility, again, depending on the numbers, that they might need to switch. And
Exactly.
Dr. Mouse, you also mentioned before that all students will be having some form of distance learning, even in the hybrid, right? The other 3 days, they'll be doing distance learning and asynchronous learning at home on those days.
Right. So yes, so 100% distance learning means they don't come to school those 2 days, but all students will be doing a form of distance learning, because all students in the hybrid model will be distance learning on Monday, and depending upon what cohort you're in, you will have distance learning on the other 2 days. So there's a distance learning component to both models.
August 10th is still the anticipated school start date?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And I just want to remember that in the hybrid, we've been talking a lot about the hybrid model. In the hybrid model, remember that we are mirroring the high school. So parents who have students in middle school and high school, we're going to work very much in tandem with the high school district to make sure that all the families are in the same cohort, because we are aware that sometimes the older siblings will take care of the younger siblings. So we want to make sure that we are as much as we can. And so the first couple of weeks of school, it might be a shifting of changing from one model to another, because to make sure that we're offering that continuity to families.
So what options do we have if we're not happy with the school we're assigned for 100% distance learning? Again, I think it really depends. We'll try not to do that. But what happens if you're in 100% distance learning and you're not at your home school? What option will you have?
Because it is 100% distance learning and we have to be able to balance those classes district-wide, the 100% distance learning we're going to try very much to align it to the current school, but we need to be able to fill those classes and say, okay, those classes are, out 24, 28, whatever the number is. So that means that there might be some schools, if you're not happy with a particular school, since you won't actually be at the school, I would need a little bit more detail as to meaning what not happy with the school means.
Yeah.
Because technically you won't be at the school. Technically you'll be 100% distance learning. So feel free to send me an email with more details on that, because I'm having a hard time understanding what that means.
How will you keep track of positive COVID students and staff?
So we will have a whole health committee that's overseeing that. And there are very strict guidelines. And again, all of that will be shared with parents in a FAQ.
That we are going to be having an FAQ with all of the safety protocols and guidelines for everyone, and including how we are ensuring the confidentiality as well as tracking the cases that we may be receiving. I don't know if she's back with us or not. And I don't know if we have our person who is reading our questions from our community. Do we have any more questions?
Let me look down here. A lot of these are questions that either were answered in the presentation or are things that we'll be discussing with teachers and staff.
Okay.
As far as how they will select which model that they're doing, what's the application process, all of that is forthcoming. How many students would be in the distance learning model? I think it's just open to all parents to be able to choose that as an option.
Absolutely. It's parent choice. Distance learning is always available to everyone. We do want to, our desire is always to return to physical instruction, traditional models. I think our teachers miss their students as well very much, but we will be doing this all through following our healthy and safety guidelines. I know that I believe Dr. Morales is back.
I'm back, but I'm under Lahua's name because it kicks me out.
So I know you got cut off in the middle of saying something. I don't know if you still want to be able to finish your thought on that.
What was it that I was saying? I kept talking and I didn't know it was frozen.
Okay, so I just, again, the word that comes to mind is being adaptable, being flexible, and knowing that what we are discussing, what we are planning for may actually change again. I just want to thank you for coming and being able to be in this virtual space, sharing your questions, your concerns, and just know that we are going to be responsive to everything, including not just the healthy guidelines, but everything that we are hearing from our community so that we can provide a plan that works for everyone, and more than anything to ensure that our students are safe. I don't know if there are any other questions that we have from our participants.
There are some more questions, Dr.
Go ahead.
One of the questions is, are we going to release the names of the chemicals being used to disinfect, just so people know what those chemicals are? I know that Mrs. Perez already mentioned that they would be dry. We would not have them in our school if they were not safe, but people are asking if they can have a list of the different chemicals.
Ron, we can provide them upon request. Or we might even want to post them on the web page. That's a discussion that needs to be had. But yes, we can disclose the chemicals.
Okay, great.
And just to add to that, when students are in the physical buildings, the disinfecting is actually done when students leave, when our staff and students leave the facilities. Disinfecting will be done when our students are no longer in the premises, and that's why it's typically done after school hours.
Are students and adults going to be required to be tested before starting the school year?
We have not seen that come up as one of the expectations from the County Office of Education or from the State Department. So no, until we hear otherwise, but no.
When can we expect the questionnaire on ParentSquare to come out?
We're putting that together as we are having these meetings to see what questions parents are wanting to answer. So a lot of the questions that have been asked in this forum, we will make sure that we include in a question and answer format.
Okay, I know that there are several questions on here that are very specific. We are saving the chat or the questions that are coming in the meeting, and we'll be able to address them with you specifically, or we'll put them on an FAQ that everybody can see. So that's why I'm not reading every question about a very specific situation that comes up. What if you find that there's an outbreak at a school? Will the school be closed and everybody go to 100% distance learning?
So yeah, so the idea is if it's one case in a particular classroom, we are setting up, and that's why we are planning for 100% distance learning. Our scope and sequence is written for 100% distance learning. So we're able to transition any classroom to 100% distance learning literally overnight. We are still looking to see what criteria is given by the state or by the health department in terms of within a building, how many have to have tested positive to shut down the building. Again, all of that information will be in an info sheet sent out to all the families.
There's a question here, parents ask, or a person's asking, if I choose hybrid and there's low participation for the two cohorts, can my child be part of both cohorts? So they'd come to school 4 days a week and they'd have distance learning only one.
Yeah. No, because the idea of the cohorts was established by the health department in order to keep a certain number of students together in order to maintain containment and be able to do tracking of where infection might or might not have occurred. So the cohorts cannot mix.
Virginia, do you see any more questions that I've missed? Again, when will the survey come out? The survey, like she said, they are coming really soon. How much daily interaction with a teacher will a student have in the distance learning plan? And again, we'll be sharing that, but there will be a time that's expected every day for students to log in, whether they're logging with their teacher to receive direct instruction, as well as work in small groups.
Yep.
Could distance learning end up as combination classes?
Right now, we're not tackling any combination classes in distance learning. We're trying to keep classes grade level solid for our distance learning. And that's the reason why we need to be able to have students from different schools participate in 100% distance learning, regardless of the school they're at, in order to avoid those combo classes.
The comment was made so that they're trying to separate students into cohorts, but teachers will be exposed to all of the students in both cohorts.
Yes, they will. Any other questions?
Again, I'm trying not to ask the really specific questions. Will students have an opportunity to meet with their teacher in person? Again, following social distancing guidelines at the beginning of the school year, or at least several times throughout the school year?
In the hybrid, yes. In the 100% distance learning, currently there isn't a plan for that, but it's something we could consider. But currently, if it's 100% distance learning, means they won't be setting foot on campus. And so, but the hybrid, yes, they will meet their teacher the first day that their cohort starts.
And we do have some teachers who are on this call. I know it's almost 10 o'clock. Are the teachers going to have an opportunity to choose or to select the model that they would work with or work under, hybrid or distance learning?
Currently, there's going to be a process, and again, it's in negotiation. Currently, there'll be a process for teachers to apply for the 100% distance learning. And again, that's negotiable. So we're in that process now. I can't disclose all the details because nothing has been agreed upon, but there will be a process for teachers to apply for the 100% distance learning. Obviously starting with the option of those teachers that might be medically fragile. All the details will be coming. That's all I can say because it hasn't been fully negotiated.
So the questions are continuing, Dr. Morales, but I also know that we want to honor the next group coming at 10 o'clock. Maybe just the last one here. You mentioned it, but during recess, will children be able to play with balls, jump rope, those types of things?
So we're going to be looking at things or tools or playthings that could be individualistic and could also be cleaned easily. So thinking of jump ropes, thinking of maybe hula hoops, things that could be wiped down, or it's assigned to a student for that day, then it's wiped down at the end of the day. So we're looking into all of that because the playgrounds obviously will not be available. So we're looking to what items students could use that could be personal for the day. There'll be a process for it.
Okay, so we're going to save the chat, and thank you, Dr. Morales, Dr. Andrade, Mr. Hogan, for answering the questions.
Thank you, everyone. I'll turn it over to our superintendent.
I thank you. No.
That's okay.
It's okay. We can live without thank yous.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.